we had looked at differentiators, integrators, right? And they have different applications for for the same. So we saw how the waveforms does change, and for the inputs given, what kind of outputs, right? So based on different circuits, right, all this would change. So you can see, we had seen that for the differentiator we have this circuit, right, and the output is minus RF, okay, which is the feedback resistance, into C1, which is the capacitance, and then into dvi by dt, right? So this was the final equation that we saw, right? And similarly, we saw few waveforms, right? If we're giving a triangular waveform, then what kind of outputs, the square outputs that we are going to obtain. So all this we had seen. So now we will just solve few problems, okay, with respect to differentiators and integrators, okay, and we will see how it goes. Design an op-amp differentiating circuit to produce 5-volt output. Okay, so we have uh, now we have information here that it is going to be about 5 volt, which means my V naught is going to be 5 volts. When the input changes by 1 volt in 100 microseconds. Okay? So we are going to induce a change of 1 volt, and the timing given is about 100 microseconds. And we are to use a bipolar op-amp for this, right? So this is the inputs that is given for us in our question. So please keep your calculators ready so that we can start calculating. So as usual, first we take this form, where I1 is taken much greater than IB max, right? And usually IB max is 500 nano, so I take 100 times of that, right? And it becomes 500 micro, right? So R2, now if you can see R2 here, R2 is equal to the output voltage V naught divided by the current that actually passes through this resistance, so which is I2. So 5 volts is here from the question, and I2 is going to be 500 microamperes. Okay, 500 microamperes. So try to divide this and tell me if it's proper, students. Are we able to get 5 volts divided by 500 micro? Or we can take the reverse way also. 500 micro into 5. So, how much are we getting?
10K.
Are we getting? Okay. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So which means, yeah, this is fine for us. So we're going to use 10K is a standard value. So, we usually don't, suppose I get 9.3, 9.2, then I usually go with, the standard value. Since I already have this, yeah. So this is a standard one. Next, we can see that, the capacitance C1 I have here, C1 is equal to I1, whatever is the current that is passing through I1, into rate of change of, with respect to rate of change of voltage with respect to time. So delta T by delta V. So 500 is there, and my delta T, a small change in time, is about 100 microseconds. And how much of voltage that I'm trying to do, the change, it's about 1 volt. So calculate and tell me if we are getting this. Are we getting these values? 0.05 microfarad. You don't have to, divide by 1. You can just multiply, 500 micro, right, into 100 micro. So we should be getting 0.05 into 10 raised to minus 6. So this value is also fine, isn't it? Right. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind here is R1 is equal to R2 by 20. We will be using this in the other problems also. Okay, R1 we are taking a very small value, okay, compared to R2. So here R2 I have got it at about 10K, right? So 10K divided by 20, right? So we should be getting 500 ohms, right? Can you divide 10K by 20? Are we getting 500?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, sir.
So we are now using, R3 is equal to R2. Okay, so this R3 is equal to R2. We are going to use 10 kiloohms. Okay. If you can remember, the coupling capacitors, high input impedance, so all this we had looked into, right? So there also we have taken this R3 is equal to R2. Next we have the formula C2. Okay. C2 is equal to C1, whatever is the value of C1 into R1 by R2. So C1 we have the value here. Okay. R1, yeah, 20 divided by 20. So we are going to use the standard one, which is about 470. So I'm taking that value. I'm not taking the calculated value. Okay, because this is going to be a practical implementation, isn't it? So 0.05 into 470 divided by R2. R2 was calculated as 10K. So that comes here. So please check. Is it 2350 pico? 0.05 micro into 470 divided by 10K.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if we get into the standard value, right? So it should be 2350 into 10 raised to minus 12. Yeah. So we don't have 350 as a standard. We have 400 as a standard. So we use this 2400 picofarad. Okay. So this is how we calculate. The most important thing now that you got to remember is this one, right? Usually R1 is equal to R2 by 20 and R3 is equal to R2, right? And by default, we have always been using this, and because of which we are going to get this 500 micro. Right? Okay. So we'll move on to the next one, right? Which is the second example. Here we are trying to make small changes. Okay, there is something called rise time and fall time, right? So TR naught. Okay, so this is actually referring to the rise time, and O is referring to output. Okay, output and T rise time. TR is rise time. Determine the required op-amp SR, which is the slew rate for the differentiating circuit designed in the previous example. Okay, so whatever we had designed here, the same parameters we're going to take, but then we're just going to make few changes. Okay, if the maximum acceptable output rise time is about 30% of input rise time. Okay, so I am taking this as TR is equal to 30% of rise time. Okay, you can see that TR is rise time, I is referring to input. So 30% of 100 microseconds. Okay, 100, how did we get? We got with this problem, the previous one, right? Okay, so if I take 30% of that, then obviously it's going to give me about 30 microseconds, isn't it, students? Right. So next we have the formula SR minimum is equal to output, whatever output voltage you have, divided by the rise time of output. So 5 volts, okay, divided by 30. How did I get 5 from the previous one? Right. So my slew is about 0.17 volts per microsecond. So for every microsecond, there is going to be about 0.17 volts of slew rate. Now we have the formula F, that is frequency, capacitive frequency, is equal to 1 divided by 2 pi RC. Now R, we have different R's here, right? I have R1, R2, R3. I am going to consider R2, the one which is in the feedback, right? So 1 divided by 2 pi, that was calculated as 10K, and C was actually calculated as 0.05. So we have the frequency of about 320. Just check and tell me if this is proper. 320 hertz. Two pi into 10K into 0.05 micro. Are we getting how much? What's the value that we are getting? We're getting exactly 320.
318.
Yeah, 318.309, right? So we take it, we tune our frequency to be about 320. Good. So yeah, 320. You can see when I've asked this in the exam, you can even mention 318.3. That's fine, and in the bracket you can write 320 hertz standard. Right? So anything should be fine. Okay. So these are some kind of problems that we will be seeing with respect to differentiators. Now we will see few problems with respect to integrators, right? So what kind of problems? So again, as I told you, the formulas are going to vary, right? So we saw that if a square input is given, then we are going to get a triangular output waveform, and then we saw few equations here, right? And then we saw that it is -1 by RC. But then there it was multiplication. R and C was multiplied, but here it is divided. Okay. So the question goes, using a bi-FET op-amp, okay, design an integrating circuit as shown in this figure, okay, to produce a triangular output waveform. So immediately, you get a clue that this is going to be an integrating circuit. Okay, so as mentioned in the question, it's given very clearly without any confusion that it's an integrating circuit. Okay. So it produces a triangular output waveform, so you know that it's an integrator, right? And it has a 4-volt peak-to-peak amplitude. So what is this peak-to-peak, right? So if I'm taking a waveform, right? So from this point to this point, okay? So this whole thing, is actually called peak-to-peak. I hope you know this, right? You've been seeing this in your practicals as well. Okay. 4-volt peak-to-peak amplitude. The input is 5 volts, 500 hertz square wave, right? So I'm giving an input as square wave, getting an output as triangular. So I know that it's an integrator, right? And just a base circuit will be given. Okay, R1, R3, R2 values. Okay, all this will not be given. You will have to, assume few values, just like how we have taken C1 here, and design the others, right? So let us select C1 is equal to 0.1 microfarad. Okay, so that is a standard, value. Even if you're doing your practicals, right, you would have seen that capacitance is taken as 0.1 microfarad. You get this as a standard one, right? Okay. So we take C1 as 0.1 microfarad. So which means, I'm going to assume few things here, right? So C1, I have already assumed that it's going to be about 0.1 microfarad. Okay. And how do I calculate this delta T? Delta T is nothing but 1 by 2f. Okay, f is nothing but the frequency. So 1 divided by 2 into 500 hertz. So I should be getting 1 divided by 100. Okay, so it becomes 100, right? So that becomes 1 millisecond. Is it correct? 1000, right? 500 into 2 is 1000. So 3 zeros. So that's going to be, instead of plus 3, it's going to be minus 3 when I take it on top. So 1 milli, right? Okay. So next I1. Okay. So what is going to be my current I1? So as we saw previously, C1 delta V by delta T, right? Rate of change of voltage with respect to time is current. Current is delta V by delta T. But then if we are checking at slew rate, then it's going to be delta T by delta V, right? Keep that in mind. So C1, we have assumed as 0.1, and delta V, the change, okay, is going to be 4 volt peak to peak. I'm going to take that, and delta T is taken from here, which is 1 millisecond. So students, please check, is it 400 microamps? 0.1 micro into 4 divided by 1 milli. Yeah. Are we getting 400 micro?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. So yeah. Now R1, okay, R1, as we all know, is the voltage V1 and I1. So it's like V is equal to IR, right? So R1 might be V1 by I1. So V1, I have it here as plus or minus 5 volt, right? And I1 I have calculated as 400. So try to divide this. So 5 divided by 400 micro, or you can do the other way around, right? So you should be having about 12.5 kilo. We getting that? R1. So here again, I'm going to use a standard value, right? I'm not going to use the one which I have calculated, right? Are we getting that? 12.5 students?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So again, here I'm going to use a 470, so which means I'm falling short by about 30 ohms. So that's fine. So yeah, this R1 is also taken care. Right now, R2. Remember, I told you 20 times, right? So R2 is going to be 20 times of R1. So 20, I have R1. So I'm going to get 2 times. So 12.5. I'm going to use 12.47 into 2, right? So it's like approximately 250. Right? So here now I'm going to use 270. So I have R2 value also. R2 value is there. So the only one remaining here is now R3, and I know that R1 is equal to R3. I can take it in that way, or I can take the parallel combination of R1 and R2. Okay, so R1 R2 divided by R1 plus R2, and yeah, I'll be getting about 12.47. So in this way, I have got my R3 as well, right? So C1, R1, R2, R3. So what we have done here, we have just taken C1 as a standard, right? We have taken as 0.1 microfarad, and the remaining are calculated as usual. And the important thing is this formula, right? I was mentioning you about this formula, right? R2 is always 20 times R1. Okay, or you want to find out R1, then R2 divided by 20. Right? So keep that in mind, and of course you can remember the standard values if you can, or for the sake of theoretical values, then yeah, you can use the same thing and then just continue. Okay, so I hope you understood these problems. Any doubt, students, till this point? Can we proceed with the next problem? Yes, is it fine?
No doubt, sir.
Okay. Right. So the next one here also we're going to calculate the slew rate, right? And this is also based on the previous problem that we have, right? So 100 times V naught peak to peak delta T. So this is the formula that we're going to use. Determine the required op-amp for integrating circuit designed in the previous example. If the ramp output is to appear distortion free, if I want this output to be without any distortions, if it has to be perfect. Okay, so how much is the slew rate that is needed? So the minimum slew rate, what is the slope that it needs to have, and also calculate the minimum sine wave signal frequency. So which means they're asking the frequency at which it needs to be operated. So we're going to use this formula, right? 100 into output peak to peak divided by delta T. So I have 4 volts. 4 is from the previous problem, and delta T was 1 milli, right? And we should be having about 0.4 the SR. So for our frequency, right, we're going to use the same formula, 2 pi, okay, R1 C1. Now remember, here we are taking the value of R1, okay, because we are going to calculate the minimum. This is for the input side, right? The minimum sine wave signal frequency, so which means it is associated with resistor R1, right? But then in the previous one, what we had done, we had not used R1, right? We just go back to that, right? We had used R2. Why is that we are using R2? Because here it says calculate the minimum sine wave frequency at which correct differentiation occurs. So we are looking at the output side, okay, the output side, and we have given here the data in form of output. Okay, so 30% the output is 30% of input rise time. So we are looking at resistor R2, right? Okay. So yeah, so are we getting this 127 hertz? Can you please help me verify this?
Yes, sir.
127, yeah, that's fine then. Okay, so these were some of the problems that I wanted to discuss with you with regards to integrator and differentiator. Now let us continue our discussion with the log and anti-log amplifiers, right? So we had seen log amplifiers, right? And we had seen how this is actually implementing. We are actually getting a logarithmic function here, and we are using this KT by Q value, right? So KT by Q value was actually giving us about 25 millivolts, right? So K is your Boltzmann constant, right? T is your absolute temperature in actually degree Kelvin, and Q is nothing but charge of electron which is 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulombs. So either we can use KT by Q, or we can just directly use minus 25 millivolts, right? So you can keep this value in mind, or just the formula. So anything is fine. Okay. Fine. So now, when we saw this log amplifiers, right? We saw that we are having a resistor here and a diode here, right? So if I'm doing the reverse operation, so which means I'm going to actually reverse here. Okay. So you can see in anti-log, instead of the diode being here, it is actually shifted here, right? Both the diode and the resistors are shifted. Fine. So the anti-log amplifier is like in figure, and it is actually similar to the log amplifier, just that the diode and the input resistor are interchanged. Now that's important. Okay, for those of you who are making notes, right, please make note that these are interchanged. The diode and the resistor are interchanged, and this circuit is important. Right, so we have the output voltage, we have input voltage. Okay, D1 is the diode. Okay, and I1 is the current across diode D1. The same I1 comes here, plus VCC minus P, then the output voltage. Fine. The circuit input current is now the diode forward current, right? So whatever current is here, okay, which is I1, is also IF, okay, forward current of the diode. So remember, diodes work only when they are put up in forward bias connection, right? If they are in reverse bias, then they do not function, right? So please keep that in mind. So the circuit input current is now the diode forward current, which means I1 is equal to IF. Input current I1 is equal to the forward current, which is associated with the diode T1. And the input voltage is its forward voltage VF. Okay, so V1 is VI, or V1 is also equal to VF. Okay, so we can see that now V naught is actually equal to minus V is equal to IR, right? So V naught is equal to minus IF, okay, the feedback or the forward current, right? Because the same I1 is coming here, and I1 is equal to IF, and since this is in the inverting format, right? So I get minus I1 or IF into R1. Okay, so now we substitute for IF, okay, and we see that V naught is equal to we had this formula, right? IS R1 e raised to, so the same concept is actually taken here, right? The same, and instead of IF, we are just substituting this value. Now, as I told you previously, right, we have this KT by Q, right? So instead of having this KT by Q, we can also put it as 25 millivolt, and the rest of the things remain, which is IS and R1. So e raised to, so I'm going to make an anti-log of this, right? So VF is now replaced with VI. So VI, so VF is VI here, okay, KT by Q, okay, KT by Q, I've taken at the denominator and performed an anti-log operation. So in this way, if I replace resistor and diode, it functions as an anti-log amplifier. Okay. Why am I calling it as an amplifier? Because of this feedback, there is a kind of amplification that happens, and it's a non-inverting terminal, so I have the minus, so which means there is a 180-degree phase shift. Right, so we were seeing that this anti-log, okay, is because of this operation here, okay, and we are going to take the value of KT by Q as 25 million. Okay, now you can recall that we had this value we are actually utilizing this formula here. Okay, is you can see here if is equal to is e raised to q vf divided by kt. So this is actually substituted, right? So you can see if is actually substituted with that, r1 is retained as it is, right? And finally we are seeing that an anti-log operation is happening just because of the changing or inversion of this diode and resistor. Okay, so now let's solve a problem and we will see how this actually holds good. So the anti-log amplifier circuit, okay, in the figure has R1 is equal to 47, okay, which is good. They're giving us data initially, right? R1 is 47, and the diode has IS is equal to 25 nanoamps, right? The current is given. Calculate the output voltage when the input is, so input Vi is also given, which is 169 millivolts, right? So I'm going to use the formula V naught is equal to V is equal to IR. So I is the IS, and R is going to be R1 into anti-log of the full formula that we saw previously. So here IS is going to be taken as 25 nanoamps, right? And R1 we have as usual 47 kilo ohms, anti-log VI, right? The input voltage is actually predefined as 169. So can someone tell me, are we getting -1 volt? You might have to use your log tables, right? Logarithmic functions. Now we need to create one model. Create one new model. So we should be getting about -1 volt. Okay. Right. Yeah. Now, just like previously we saw, we're going to replace it with instead of diode, I'm going to replace it with a BJT, okay, and which has emitter, base, and collector, and we will see how it works. Why are we using BJT? Because that's also good for current carrying loads, right? So we can the current handling capability of BJT is also good. So keeping these properties in mind, right, we are going to use a BJT. So in an anti-log amplifier, so just like how we saw in log amplifier, a BJT may be used instead of a diode. So instead of a diode, I'm going to use it. And here again, both the collector and base terminals of the transistor are held at ground level. Okay, I have my emitter here, I have my base here, I have my collector. How is this at ground potential? With the concept of virtual ground, right? So this is connected to ground, so this should also be virtually connected to ground. So here both base and collector are kept at what level? Ground level. Okay, so the base emitter junction is forward biased, so this base and emitter junction is forward biased. Okay, and the device behaves as a diode. So it's actually a transistor, okay, but then I'm making use of the PNP junctions, okay, and for a diode I just need a PN junction, and that is possible with the help of this transistor because it has PNP or probably NPN, right? So based on that, I'm going to get a diode. In fact, a transistor is a combination of two diodes, right? Back to back connected in reverse. So I'm going to ground one of the portion, and then I'm going to forward bias, and ultimately this BJT becomes a diode. I'm converting into a diode. So this has a voltage drop of VBE. Okay, so the voltage across the base and the emitter. Okay, VBE. Equation may be applied to BJT circuit. What kind of equation? The one that we saw, V naught. V naught is equal to, right? We had IS and IF, right? So that formula can be applied here also for this BJT, wherein we substitute the base emitter junction with the reverse leakage current, which is for IS. So in the formula, we are going to replace it for with reverse leakage current, whatever data we had previously. So how do we get this value, students? The reverse leakage current, from where do I find this? Can I get it from the question, or is it from the data sheet? How do I get to know this reverse leakage current? Yeah, how do I get to know the values of reverse leakage current? Yeah, students, it is from the data sheet, right? From the data sheet I get to know. Right. So the next topic, that we'll be looking into is analog multipliers and dividers. So this circuit, okay, can be utilized as analog multiplier. And not only this, there are n number of applications, and I've just listed out quite a few of them, and we will be seeing one of the application and how this actually works, right? Okay, so we have two inputs here. Okay, the terminals Vx and Vy, and the ports are X and Y. So the voltages across X and voltages across Y, and we have V plus and V minus, okay, and the output. So we will see now, this output is equal to the multiplication of both. Okay, whatever inputs you have here, X and Y, is going to be multiplied, and you are going to have a reference voltage called Vref. Okay, so your formula for output, is actually going to be V naught is equal to Vx into Vy divided by V reference. Okay, so you can see that it's actually a multiplying factor here. Okay, the voltages between the terminals X and Y are getting multiplied. Fine. So there are a number of applications of analog multipliers, such as frequency doubling, right? So suppose I'm operating at 5 kilohertz, and then I want to double my frequency, then I am free to use this circuit, right? This is also a part of op-amp, right? And it will help me in frequency doubling. It's going to enhance my frequency. Next, measurement of real power. So I can measure, okay, what is going to be my power delivery for any circuit, right? How is it going to happen? Because the terminals, okay, the plus and the minus terminals are actually very sensitive, right? So we can actually connect them, and this differentiating property, okay, the differences between inverting and non-inverting terminal will enable me to measure power. Detecting phase angle difference between the two signals of equal frequency, right? So that's also with the help of these terminals. Multiplying two signals, yes, X and Y, we're going to see that how it's going to multiply. Dividing one signal by the other, right? So we, after this analog multiplier, we'll also see analog divider. Using the same circuit, we're going to actually connect it to another op-amp, and we will try and see how this dividing feature is extracted. We can also take a square root of a signal, right? And we can even square a signal, right? Signal into signal. So all these are some of the applications. Okay, it's not just limited to these applications, but then depending on what kind of device that you're going to connect, and what kind of customizations that you're going to do, so based on that, you can actually the applications are going to increase, right? So students, are you all following? You're all there with me? Yes. So these were, some of the limited applications of analog multiplier. So based on how you connect, okay, we will see quite a few of them. Probably I'll be taking up squaring of a signal, right? And maybe square root, probably, yeah. So one or two applications I'll be taking with analog multiplier, and we'll see how it works, right? So this is just like a black box, right? I have some inputs, I'm giving a supply, I am getting an output. So inside, what I'm going to do, we will look into it. Okay. Fine. So this is, a basic, I've brought forward this diagram here. Yeah. So this is a basic multiplier schematic symbol, right? As shown in the figure. So what do you mean by symbol? Symbol is something, you represent as an operation. Let's say, for an inverter, right? How do you do it? You have a triangle shape, isn't it? And then what else do you have to represent a inverter? You have a bubble there, yes or no? So this is going to be your input, right? This is going to be your output. So actually inverter is not like this, right? I'm just giving a symbol for it. I'm giving a representation for it. Just like how we all have our names, right? Our university seat numbers. So similarly, we are giving a symbol, right? And this symbol will actually help us understand what is going to be at the input side and what is going to be at the output side. So here I know that it is you can consider this like a box, right? Like a black box, and you can see that let me probably draw a box kind of thing. Yeah. So let us take this as a black box, right? So inside, I'm able to see that there is ground, X, Y, and all the stuff. Outside, I'm only just able to see the terminals. So just like how you can see in your integrated circuits, your ICs, right? ICs, you can only see the aluminum, connecting terminals. Can you see the circuit inside an integrated circuit? Is it possible?
No, sir.
Not at all, right? So you are only able to see, the metal connectors, right? So similarly, this is a kind of a symbol, right? And I know that this is my external Y terminal, and plus and minus, and my output. So now we are going to see how it's going to function exactly. So two input signals, Vx and Vy, are provided. The output is the product of two inputs divided by the reference voltage Vref, right? Vref we have as the reference voltage. Thus, output voltage is a scaled version of X and Y inputs. So your output, okay, your output is a scaled down version. So usually, we keep this V reference as 10, okay? So it's a multiplied factor, Vx into Vy, divided by some constant number, say 10 or 15 or 20. So that's a reference voltage, right? So ultimately, you're getting at your output, which is part of an input, but then it's a scaled down version. What do you understand by a scaled down version? A miniature version. Say, you have 5 here, then probably I might get, if I divide it by 10, okay, then I'm going to get it about 0.5. But the nature of my output is actually, a miniature version of input. Okay. So now let's get into the equations and we'll understand how this works. So we see that, the output equation, okay, the output is actually given by Vx into Vy divided by reference, as we saw, right? So this formula is important. All of you should make note of this. V naught is equal to Vx Vy divided by V reference. So as I was telling you, V reference is usually set to about 10 volts, the reference voltage. So it's just like this, it's like a scale. Above the scale, then you are probably treated as some class, and below this scale, then you're going to be treated as some class. So it is a point of reference. So similarly here, I have a voltage reference, which is kept to be about 10 volts. Okay. So V naught is equal to Vx, okay, by Vf divided by 10. So this will actually holds good. Okay, this will actually holds good. Why am I taking as Vf? Because this is going to be the feedback one. So as long as these voltages are less than 10 volts, suppose it becomes greater than 10 volts, then I'll say the output voltage altogether would change. Just try to divide a smaller numerator with a larger denominator. And using the same numbers, try to reverse them and do the same, right? Do the same division. So how is it going to matter? The values are really going to change. Is it true? Yes or no? Let us take the 0.25 and divide it by 25, right? So how much are we getting? 0.25 divided by 25. How much is it? Can someone tell me quickly? 0.25 divided by 25.
0.1.
Yeah. Now do the reverse. Bring the numerator to denominator, which means 25 divided by 0.25. How much do we get?
10, sir.
Sure. 25 divided by 0.25. 25 divided by 0.25. 100, right? Yeah. So you can see that this output is going to hold good only if my input voltages are very much less than reference. So it should not go greater, right? So what I'm trying to say here is these Vx and Vy are very small voltages. Small voltages, and reference is a higher voltage. Okay. Right. So the output of a multiplier will not saturate it. So when will it not saturate? Only if this condition is met. Only if Vx is less than V reference and Vy is less than V reference, I will not make my circuit saturate. What is meant by saturation? Which is being constant, or which is being, at the same point, right? It will not saturate. Power supply voltage can range from 8 to 18 volts, right? So usually we keep about 15, okay, 12 to 15 volts. So why am I using plus or minus? So that it goes to one of the terminals, plus terminal and minus terminal. Usually these multipliers are designed for the same type of power supplies as used for op-amp. So as I was mentioning, right? So we are going to use the same type which we had seen in op-amps. So we're going to use a standard plus 15 volt. You can even scale it down to about 12 volts. That shouldn't be a problem, because absolutely anything above 8 volts is fine. Okay, 8 volts and below 18 volts. Right. Okay, now let us understand there are 3 conditions here. Okay, I hope all of you know this are called quadrants, right? First, second, third, fourth. So in first, it's all positive and positive, right? And then here it's positive and negative, right? And in third, right, it's negative and negative, right? Negative and positive. So we all are very much aware of this first, second, third, and fourth quadrants. So we will see, what kind of combination when you give to this Vx and Vy, okay, what kind of outputs that we are going to receive, right? So we will just look into that. If both the inputs are positive, so which means it's lying in the first quadrant. If both the inputs are positive, the IC is said to be a one quadrant multiplier, two quadrant multiplier, and four quadrant multiplier. So if it's occupying all the four quadrants, which means it has combinations of all this plus and minus, and here it is occupying only the first and second, and here it's occupying only the first quadrant. What do you mean by occupying? It means the combination of inputs that you are giving, right? It could be plus and minus, or it can be plus and plus. So that falls in this quadrant range. Now let us look at the second one. So in the second one, a two quadrant multiplier is nothing but it will function properly if one of the input is held positive and the other is allowed to swing between both positive and negative, right? So here, let me just draw this. So here it can swing between from this value to this value, right? So it has an advantage of swinging between a positive value and a negative, but one of the values should be positive. Understood? Vx should be positive, and Vy, it can be either positive value or a negative value. It can just swing between them. So in that case, it will occupy two quadrants. Okay, allowed to swing both positive and negative. If both inputs may either be positive or negative, so now the double case of this, right? So here it was only positive. Here Vx is kept positive and Vy is allowed to move around positive and negative, or you can take the other way. Vy is kept positive and Vx is made to move between positive and negative, then it occupies two quadrants, right? Now if both are having two combinations, then we can say that it is occupying all the four quadrants. So if both the inputs may either be positive or negative, the IC is called four quadrant multiplier, which is in figure B, right? So any doubts with this quadrants, students? Have you understood how these quadrants work and what is this positive and negative? Is it clear? Yes. Okay. Right. So, yes. So a simple block diagram. Okay, we will just see how this log and anti-log multiplier happens. So I am giving my input here Vx. Okay, I'm giving my input here Vy. Now I am getting into the internal of it. Remember, I told you it was just a symbol, and we are going to see what is inside, right? So here, when I say log amplifier, what does it involve, students? Log amplifiers, what do they involve? Can you recollect? We just saw them, right? Log amplifier, what do they involve? What is the internal circuitry? Does it have a diode? Does it have a resistance? Does it have an op-amp? Yes, can you please respond? Log amplifiers, what do they have? Do they have all these three or just only the op-amp? It does have all these, right? So just recollect. Right? See, it has an op-amp, it has a diode, and it has a resistance. So resistance is there, diode is there, and op-amp is there. So these three together will help me perform log operation. So that is what is called log amplifier. So when I say log amplifier here, okay, so internally I have that circuit here, log amplifier, and here also I have that circuit, and here I have the summer, okay, summation. So which means log Vx and Vy both are going to be added, and this is going to be given to anti-log amplifier. And why are we giving to anti-log amplifier? So that we we are able to get, the anti-log function. Okay, we're going to get the anti-log function, and ultimately my output is going to be, Vx Vy divided by V reference. There can be several ways to make a circuit which will multiply according to the equation V naught. So, usually in our VLSI design, what we do is when we keep them in series, they multiply. If you can recall this NMOS and PMOS structures, right? So here you can see that if suppose I have to construct an AND gate, right? Have you all studied this? Implementation using NMOS and PMOS. Have you all done this? I think probably in digital electronics would have done, right? Say for
Yes, sir.
example, yeah. Say for example, I have two transistors connected like this in series. So if they are in series, what kind of functionality it's going to do? Is it going to multiply, or is it going to add? So these are NMOS transistors, right? And I'm going to take my output here, right? So when they are in series, okay, they actually perform the multiplication operation. Suppose I keep them in parallel. I hope you can recall these concepts. Yes or no? So suppose I keep them in parallel, then it is going to what? Can someone tell me what is going to happen? It is going to add, right? So addition operation happens when I keep them in parallel, the NMOS, and when I keep them in series, the multiplication operation happens. So the reverse happens with respect to PMOS, right? So in PMOS, when they are in series, they perform addition, and when they are in parallel, they perform multiplication, right? So this is not the only way that we can actually make a multiplier circuit, okay, but then there are many other ways using other technologies like NMOS, PMOS, okay. One commonly used technique is log anti-log method. So why am I using this log anti-log? Because there is KT by Q, and then I'm dividing it, so there is a scale there, right? A scale down version. So ultimately I'm using the log and anti-log method. This method relies on the mathematical relationship that the sum of the log of two numbers equals to the log of the product of those two numbers. So I think this is a very well known rule for all of you, right? So I have Vx plus Vy, so that is going to be multiplied here, right? Yes or no? So I think you all know this rule, isn't it? Rules of logarithmic functions. So the same thing is happening here. So I have two inputs here, right? So when I add those two inputs, I can also put it as a multiplication, okay, a logarithmic multiplication of those two log inputs, right? Do you all know this formula, this log formula? Yes, no? Okay. So I have included an explanation here, okay, so that it becomes easy for you when you study. It's a block diagram of log anti-log multiplier IC. Log amps require that input and reference to be of the same polarity, right? So when it's in the same polarity, then which quadrant are we looking at? Are we looking at first quadrant, or first and second, or 1, 2, 3, 4? What kind of quadrant are we looking at? Students, please respond. So it's going to be the first quadrant, right? So log amps require that the input and reference voltages to be of the same polarity, which means if it's positive, then yes, positive. Then if it's negative, then my reference voltage also should be negative. This restricts the log anti-log multipliers to one quadrant operation. Okay, so I told you. So if in case they are of the same polarity, then it's going to be a one quadrant operation. So a technique that provides four quadrant multiplication is transconductance multiplier. So some of the examples that you can quote while writing your exams is AD 533 and AD 534. We are not going to look into the architecture or the circuits of this, okay? But then these are also some kind of multipliers, okay? Just like how we have seen the usage of log and anti-log here, right? So similarly, here we have other types, which is AD 533 and AD 534 and AD 633. So you can actually refer this for your further information. I have just put up here, as an example. So the main thing you have to know is how is the operation, what kind of equations, and what is it doing. Okay. So one of the application of analog multiplier is going to be the squaring circuit. So how do we enable this, right? So this is just as good as our previous circuit, right? The multiplier circuit. But then what we have done here is we are giving voltage and both the terminals are connected, Vx and Vy, and at the output we have a resistance which is about 10k, right? Okay, so you can compare both of this, right? The multiplier, right? So the same thing is here, okay? Just that we are trying to make some changes. So what changes is that we are connecting both X and Y. Okay. So the basic multiplier, okay, in the figure can be used to square any positive or negative number, provided the number can be represented by voltage between 0 to Vref. Now, if in case it is not equal to V reference, then what happens? Or if it's greater than V reference, what happens, students? If it's not in this range, then what happens? Remember, we had seen that it is not going to be in the normal form, but then it's going to be saturated, right? So it is going to malfunction. So we need to have voltage levels which is less than V reference. So the input voltage here, okay, you can see that this Vi, okay, is the number connected to both the inputs X and Y. So I'm shorting both X and Y, and once it is short, okay, so you can see that I'm connecting here. Okay, so we are going to connect both of them, X and Y, right? And you can see that this voltage here, okay, is connected to both X and Y, and at the output side we have a resistance which is about 10k, right? Okay. Now the other thing that we can we can look into is that the major thing is it should be in this range, which is 0 to V reference. So if it is not in this level, okay, then it becomes difficult, because we saw the example of 0.25 and 25, right? So if I'm dividing 0.25, okay, at 0.25 by 25, then it's actually 0.01, right? But then if I have 25 divided by 0.25, then that's going to give me 100. So you can see that when it's becoming greater and lesser, there's a huge change that's happening. Okay, this is fine. So now let us quantify them, in the form of equations, right? Okay. So it is possible to square a sine wave voltage too. Okay. So if in case I'm giving a square input here, okay, which means I'm giving a sine wave and I want to square it, which means I want to double it. So let's say the height, as we saw in one of the problems, it was about 4 volts peak to peak, right? So if I want to increase that, or if I want to increase it to probably 2 times, right, square, or it's not only 2 times, it's actually multiplying by itself, so becomes 4 into 4, 16, right? So if I want to do that with a sine wave as an input, that's also possible. Okay, so let's take it, that I'm going to give the input as Vi is equal to Vm sine omega t. Okay, so Vi is equal to Vm sine omega t. So this is the normal format of any sine wave. Okay, so Vm is going to be the amplitude, okay, and sine omega t. So this is going to give me the angular information, and this is going to give me the amplitude information. So is applied to both the inputs, then the output voltage V0 is given by, so V0 is equal to Vi square. Why is it Vi square? Because X and Y are both connected to Pi. So Vi square divided by V reference. Usually it used to be Vx into Vy divided by V reference. But here it is only given to Vi, right? So it is Vi square divided by V reference. Okay. Now I'm going to substitute these values here. Okay. So Vi is equal to Vm sine omega t, right? And we're going to take, V reference as 10 volts as usual. So V0 is equal to V, Vi square, which is, I'm going to take this form here. Okay, 5 sine 2 pi into 10 raised to 4 t. So I'm going to take this form here as my input voltage. So 5 square, then sine 2 pi into 10 raised to 4 t whole square. So 5 square gives me 25 divided by 10 is 2.5. Okay, and when I try to apply the trigonometric formula here for this sine, then this will actually give me 1 by 2 minus 1 by 2 cos 2 pi into 2. So I'm seeing it is being multiplied with 2. Okay, if I try to divide it by 2, 2.5 divided by 2, okay, then it will give me 1.25, isn't it? So it's going to give me 1.25. So 1.25 minus 1.25 into cos 2 pi into 2 and 10 raised to 4 t. That's going to remain. So this portion that you are seeing here is a DC term. Okay. And the frequency is also doubled. So I have 2 times here. The frequency is doubled 2 times. So ultimately, I am able to use or utilize the multiplier circuit as squaring circuit. Okay, so squaring because 2 comes here, and there's a term here, a DC term. So I'm able to apply the rule of squaring here. Okay. So next, the next thing that we'll be looking into is divider. Okay, so this is the last I have for today's class, the divider concept. How with the help of multiplier, how we are able to perform the operation of divider. Okay. So we'll just look into it and we will wrap up this session. Okay, so we are going to use the same thing here that we have seen previously, Vx, Vy, right? And the output, the resistor, which is about 10K. But the only small difference that I'm going to do here is I'm going to connect this to an op-amp, right? I'm going to connect this to an op-amp, and I can call this probably as R1, the initial resistance R1, and that's going to be 10K. And input here is, at the output side of this symbol, right, the multiplier symbol, okay, is going to be VZ, but VZ is actually at the input side of the op-amp, right? And at the output side, I have V0 towards op-amp, and towards the multiplier circuit, I actually have Vx as my input. So understand in this way, okay? The input for the multiplier is on the right hand side, and the output is towards the left hand side, right? But here for the op-amp, the input is at the left hand side, and the output is actually at the right hand side, right? And you can see that this is a non-inverting an inverting configuration, right? The non-inverting terminal is grounded, so which means this is also at virtual ground potential, right? Okay, so division, the complement of multiplication, can be accomplished by placing the multiplier circuit element in the op-amp's feedback loop. So instead of having a feedback here, okay, so generally we connect a resistor, right? So now we have it like this, right? We have a resistor connected, but here I'm not doing that, but I'm just trying to keep a multiplier circuit here. Okay, so this is working as a feedback network for me, right? So I'm going to take part of the output and going to give to the Y terminal. Remember, it has two terminals, Vx and Vy. So to the Y terminal, I'm going to give, and to the X, I'm usually giving, the normal inputs. It could be sine wave, just like how we did a squaring operation, right? Yeah, the same thing. Okay, right. So you can, you can just see how complex, or probably how clever, this circuit was done, isn't it? We are able to utilize, the multiplier circuit, and with this multiplier, we are able to do the division operation. Fine. So we are looking at the feedback, right? The op-amp's feedback here, and this feedback is altered. The output voltage from the divider in figure with input signals Vz and Vx. Okay, so Vz is here and Vx is here, right? So these two becomes my input signals, isn't it? So Vx and Vz, these becomes my input signals, right? Okay, are dividend and divisor respectively. So I have Vx and Vz. Okay, so these are dividend and divisor. So which means Vz is going to come at the numerator and Vx is going to come at the denominator. So as we all know, output is equal to minus. Why is it minus? Because I have here getting connected to the minus terminal, isn't it? Vz divided by Vx. So this is also an important formula, right, that you can remember. V0 is equal to minus V reference Vz by Vx. So yeah, so this is one of the applications of multiplier. And now let us look into the equations, right? We look into the equation. The same circuit is actually brought in here. Okay, there's no difference, right? You can see R is equal to 10K, right? And then here also R is 10K, right? So I've brought in the same multiplier circuit, and that's configured as a divider. Now IZ, okay, IZ is equal to IA. So whatever is my current across this terminal here, okay, I have noted this point as Z, as Z. So this IZ, the current across the Z, is equal to IA, right? So which means this is across the output of my multiplier, output of multiplier. Now IZ is equal to Vz by R, so which means this R is equal to 10K. Okay. So the output of VA, okay, the output voltage VA of multiplier is determined by the multiplication of Vx and Vy. Now, Vx, of course, I'm giving here, and Vy is actually my V0, right? So Vx I retain as it is, and Vy I replace with V0, and V reference comes as usual. Va is equal to minus Ia into R. So V is equal to IR. So what I is going to be the Ia, right? And my R is going to be this. Okay, so this Ia is nothing but Iz. Okay, now Ia is equal to, I'm just trying to rearrange them, right? I'm going to bring this to the left hand side and then retain the minus this side, right? So it's going to be Va by R and minus, I'm going to shift it that side, right? So it's going to be Vx, so minus Va by R. So Va is nothing but, okay, it's a combination of V0, okay, V0 is here, V0 is here, and Vx is here. So you can see that, you know, there's a multiplying factor also here, V0 Vx, and it is divided by reference also. So there's a divider that is happening. So as Iz is equal to Ia, I'm just going to substitute it. Okay. So instead of Ia, I will put it as Iz is equal to minus Vx, V0, V reference R. Okay. Now, if I want Vz, as we all know, Iz into R. So Iz, I have this whole value here, Vx, V0, V reference into R. So into R means they're going to, you know, numerator and denominator, both are going to get cancelled. So I am only going to be remaining with this equation. So V0 is equal to, you know, Vz, right? So V0 is equal to minus, okay, V reference and Vz by Vx. I can again rearrange them. Okay, this can be rearranged. So I can bring V0 here, I can get Vz here, and you know that can be cross multiplied. So you can probably make note of this, or you can look at this formula here. Output is equal to minus V reference, okay, Vz by Vx. So what do we understand by this? Vz is nothing but, you know, the voltage which is across the input of my op-amp, okay, that is Vz, divided by Vx. Okay, so Vx is my input across multiplier circuit. So input of op-amp, input of multiplier. So both are taken and they are divided. Okay, Vz and Vx are divided. So ultimately, I am able to perform the operation of what? Divide. So it is performing the operation of dividing. Why is it performing the operation of divider? Because I have Vz and Vx. Vz is here and Vx is here. So the inputs are divided between each other, keeping V reference as a standard voltage. Now, division by 0 is not possible, right? You know, it's you know, generally not done, and multiplier IC can be used for squaring a signal. Okay, so as we saw previously, I can square a signal, I can do division with the help of multiplying circuit, right? Similarly, divider circuit can be used to take the square root of a signal. Very interesting, right? So with the help of one circuit, I'm able to do multiple things. Just with the help of, you know, multiplier, I'm able to square, I'm able to divide. Okay, now I'll be looking into how will I take this square root functionality. Okay, how is the square root functionality with the help of this circuit? Okay, so this is going to be the last slide for our class today. So I'm having the same multiplier circuit here, Vx, Vy. I have combined them, right? So my output, at the output, I have R is equal to 10, right? So the same thing, typically the same thing. The negative terminal, the positive terminal, right? Just that I'm not going to, you know, give a separate Vx here. Okay, but then when I do this Vx, Vy, which means a squaring is happening, right? A squaring is happening, just like how we saw in squaring circuits. A divider circuit can be used to find square roots by connecting both the inputs. So X and Y both are connected to the multiplier, okay, to the output of an op-amp as in figure. So I am going to use this as what? A feedback network, right? So instead of using the resistor, along with the resistor, I am combining the multiplier circuit. So let's talk in terms of equations, right? So VA, what is my VA is equal to V naught square divided by V reference. Why is it V naught square? Because it is Vx into Vy. Now Vx is also V naught and Vy is also V naught. So I multiply them, I get V naught square divided by V reference. And VA is equal to minus V in. Okay, so whatever is my input voltage, okay, so it's minus of that. So V naught square, so I'm just trying to take them around, right? So VA into V reference comes here, cross multiplies. So V naught square is equal to minus V in into V reference, okay, because VA is equal to minus V in. I'm just substituting here. Instead of VA, I'm using minus V in. So minus V in stays and V reference is here. Okay, so as we all know, when it's a square and I want to remove the square, then I put a square root on the other side, right? So what are we doing here? We are trying to see that we are able to do a square root. So with the help of multiplier, you can see that multiple things are possible, right? Division is possible, finding square root is possible, squaring the values are possible, right? So thus the output V naught is proportional to the square root of magnitude V in. So the output is actually proportional to the magnitude of V in. So how much ever. So when I say magnitude, I'm not considering the negative portion, but then I'm just going to take the quantity. Okay, just going to take the quantity. Right. Note that V in must be negative. Okay, so this V in that we are giving should be a negative value, or else op-amp will saturate. So if I give a positive value, right, so it's going to saturate. If I give a negative value, then it's going to function fine. But here in our formula, we are going to just consider the magnitude, which means the negative is not considered. We just take the value. Okay, so V in, so that the op-amp does not saturate. So the range of V in lies between -1 to -10. Why is it -10? Because V reference is taken as 10. Okay, so this reference is taken as 10. So which means my voltage can start from 1 to maximum V reference, right? So this is what we have seen so far, the applications of multiplier circuits, right, divider circuits. So in your examinations, anything of that sort can be asked, wherein you can just draw the circuit, explain its operation, and you can associate it with few equations. Okay, so we will end our lecture here, and probably we will continue in our next class.